Let me talk to you.
Hey y'all, welcome back to Scary Movie Sunday, where we're going to talk about the 2022 movie Talk to Me. This is an Australian movie directed by Danny and Michael Filippo. Have no idea if I'm saying that right. Hopefully I am. We saw this on Netflix. If you haven't seen it yet, it is going off of Netflix pretty soon, so you can catch it there. We'll just jump right into a summary. So this is following a group of teenagers. They have gotten their hands on an artifact. It's a severed hand that they can use to commune with and briefly become possessed by spirits. And it is also some sort of high to them. There's a reason they would want to do it and not just the pure terror of being possessed. But of course, in horror movie fashion, they don't follow their rules, and our main character ends up tormented by the spirits. Her name's Mia, and drives her a little bit mad, and then we see the downfall of playing with the other world. And we end with Mia actually herself becoming a spirit and being on the other side of that connection when other people are using the hand. Is a really interesting concept. I really liked the movie.
Yeah, I just knew the way that they presented this was it was going to be the typical high schooler party hangout, and we're going to do the drinking thing and maybe do some of the smoking thing. Very much portrayed some type of after effect of once you've done it, they did montages that kind of gave it off as a drug euphoria. Obviously, there's the dare component to it, but you mentioned that they had a handful of rules that they were intended to adhere to. What were those rules?
So to begin the ritual, you light a candle, and then the person who will be communing with the dead will grip the hand, say, "Talk to me," movie title drop. And then at that point, a spirit will reveal themselves, will come before them. And then that is the spirit that they will then say, "I let you in," and they will be possessed. The rule then is possessions should only go for 90 seconds. Or was it 80?
90, I thought.
Okay. They have a second amount. And then another person in the room will physically remove that hand from them and then blow out the candle. And that closes the door, they say. So immediately, Mia ends up with her superhuman possessed strength, holding onto that hand for a few extra seconds. And that you don't really know for sure, but there's the doubt in your mind placed immediately that that's what causes the whole thing to unravel.
Yeah, the other kids that are doing this, they don't really seem to have any long-term side effects from it. Once they're done and they're out, they're pretty much instantly back to normal, other than the euphoric effect that comes from it. None of them are proclaiming that they're seeing anything afterwards, but shortly after Mia, the main character, does her particular stint, she ends up as the audience, we're seen as the second ghost that she encountered, because she actually encountered more than one on her first go, because she got too scared to continue holding on to the thing, so she let go before she let them in. So the second time she grabbed the hand, she got a woman that looked like she had been dropped in a river and was bloated. But us as the audience, we were given a chance to see that figure's hand reappear in certain scenes and not see the full picture, but we were given a hint that the other side had to some degree followed her or attached to her.
And maybe we should talk about the opening of this movie, because we honestly hadn't really pegged this as something we were going to talk about, but then we saw the opening scene and went, "Oh my gosh, we have to talk about that for Scary Movie Sunday." So, though Mia is our main character, we follow her and her friends. The movie actually opens with a different person, and it's a boy who's going through this house party, and he's desperately searching for his brother.
With his mom in the kitchen chopping up snacks for everybody as 40 high schoolers are terrorizing the house.
40 is more like 100, but he's in this house. There's a big party going on, but he's looking for his brother, and that is very funny, and something we'll talk about later about parents in this movie playing a very strange role. But he ends up finding his brother, finding the room that he's in, and he cannot get in. So he starts breaking the door down. And you actually made a comment that made me laugh as soon as that happened.
Yeah, absolutely. In every single movie you ever see them kicking doors in, the doors are almost portrayed as this solid object, and you're basically kicking the frame open. In this scene, with no context, you just see him searching for his brother, and he's visibly concerned when he realizes he can't get into the room, and he just starts throwing his shoulder into it, and the first thing that gives is the middle of the door, because interior doors on homes are hollow. I never see that in a film. You always see them going after the handle or the hinges, something on the edge. But yeah, the middle of the door starts collapsing in, and he just keeps ramming it. And it was one of the most realistic scenes I've ever witnessed.
Surprising realism.
Yeah, and instantly I just appreciated, oh, they're doing this for real. But things went up a notch after that.
Well, and so then he collects his brother. You can see he's visibly wounded. He's not doing so well. He's guiding him out of the room. And of course, we're at a party full of teenagers. Those teenagers have their phones up. They're now recording. And the brother gets very agitated, yelling at them to put their phones away. What is wrong with them? And then the brother, who's been off screen, has obtained the knife, presumably the same one that had been used to chop some nice crudité earlier. He stabs his brother, and then he kills himself with the knife. And
it just rams it straight like through his eye socket or something.
It was wild. And that's the opening scene. And from there, you got to reset, which was a little hard for me, honestly, because now we're following completely different people. We're learning new things. But that opening was maybe the best opening of a horror movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah, that alone. Like, if you're listening so far and going, I don't know about this, if you just watch that opening, and I guarantee you'll be hooked. So the other thing about Mia that we haven't talked about, and the reason I think she's a compelling protagonist for this movie, is that she's dealing with a lot of grief.
Yeah, honestly, they set it up kind of awkward, because after we just had this really hype scene, we kind of go through some of just daily interactions with Mia, one of which that includes her standing at the kitchen counter and her father walking in the back, and he's just asking her general questions, and you can almost hear like a buzzing noise kind of muffling him out, and eventually she very agitatedly responds to him. And at this point, I had no idea that was her father. At this point, I'm seeing Mia, who I think is supposed to be roughly about 16 years old. I thought she reminded me of the woman from 28 Days Later. I was assuming she was like 30.
Oh.
Yeah, so I was really out of whack when I now see this man walk through, and I'm thinking it's a doctor, it's a brother, it's a husband. Father was not the thought that came into my head. So she's having a little spat with her father. It's not clear why. They don't really introduce him as her father. You figure it out as time goes on. It's just a weird thing. Chick's over here making a sandwich, and she's got an edge problem with her father.
It's so funny. You were on the complete opposite spectrum from me. So the thing that I was confused about is I thought that it was her mom's funeral, when really you find out later it's her 2-year celebration of life. So she's been dead for about 2 years. But I immediately clocked, she's in grief. Her dad's trying to reach her. She's been blocking him out. There's this disconnect, that island, it's separating them. And then one thing that was funny, the way that they did the scene, is she's washing dishes, and the water's running and he says something and you as the audience can't understand him. So she turns the water off. What did you say? And yeah, he asks some generic, like, how'd today go for you? She answers, and there's just silence. Except for, like you said, there's that ambient noise. So eventually she's like, okay, she hasn't looked at him. She doesn't know if he's even still there. So she turns the water back on to keep washing dishes, and he starts talking to her again. And isn't that just real life? You're waiting.
Now I have to ask, who do you sympathize more with in that scene?
If I put that like with you and me, I am definitely the one who's like making the noise.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, I wait. There's that silence. Okay, you're not talking anymore. I'm going to turn my water back on. And then it's like, oh, you want some Cheetos? Okay, no, tell me that when the water's
Yeah,
off.
I think you're telling on yourself a little bit, because much like Mia, you angrily turn it back on. Like,
I'm so
all right,
angry.
you done?
The angry water.
Oh, you're talking again? How dare you, even though you haven't moved or stopped looking in my general direction since you began talking to me. Oh, you had more to say.
I think we've struck a nerve here. No, so that's interesting, the difference that you see there. And then the other thing is, so she's dealing with this, and obviously there's that disconnect with her father. You see that very quickly she is more a family with her best friend. So she gets a phone call. She goes to pick up a little boy. And at this point, I wasn't sure. I thought maybe it was her brother, even though they look nothing alike. But then you learn, oh no, he knows that she's safe. And so he calls her for a ride when he can't get a hold of his sister or his mom. She takes him home. And then you see that, like, this isn't a big deal or out of the ordinary, that she's just there. The mom isn't surprised to see her there. She's helping the little boy with his homework. That's just where she belongs. And an interesting note with the set is her house is very cold. There isn't a lot of color. It's black and white. It's a lot of harsh edges. And then you go to her friend's house and it is warm and there are pillows and it's comfort there. There's a dog. There's people and light. It's a really interesting contrast.
I hadn't noticed that until you had pointed it out. But going back to the theme of the parents in the movie, that's when we're introduced to Éowyn.
It is Éowyn.
From Lord of the Rings. Miranda Otto is the mother of Jade, who is her best friend. And she is a rampant... What the hell?
High-strung.
Yeah, what are we doing here? She is in a constant state of, hey, I know my daughter's running out on the town. She's going to leave the house as soon as I get done getting ready for bed. She's going to drink. And this like weird boundary between policing it and saying, hey, don't do these things. I know you're doing these things, and completely allowing it, condoning it, and accommodating it. It was just strange. And all throughout the film, she does these weird ebb and flows. Even makes a joke where she's in on the two girls and the boyfriend in the bedroom, and even says, hey, her vagina is closed. Just a weird character. And every single parent in this movie was some version of this, going all the way back to the opening sequence, and the mom who's chopping up some goodies.
Well, let's talk about that. So yeah, the first parent that you see is that mom at a party, at a wild house party. It's one of those parties that you'd only see in movies, and typically it'd be like, my parents are away. But in the midst of the chaos, she's literally like, oh, hi. Yeah, your brother's down the hall. And she's just chopping vegetables. It's wild. And then is nowhere else to be seen. She's not helping to get the kids to not video his brother. She's not helping at all. She's just there.
I'm gonna laugh if we're gonna find out that she was like a 14-year-old girl and we both just assumed she was like 35.
That'd be funny. So yeah, that's your introduction. And then you have the dad, who is so distant. We don't even see his face for over half of the movie. So he's like in the background, but it's blurry. You don't really see him. And then his name is popping up. But there's that question, and I ask this question a lot with teen movies, but I'll point it out anyway, of where is he? Does he not care? Because his daughter is just like gone, never at home. And then you get Eowyn, the mom of the best friend. One of the things,
Her name is Sue.
One of the things that stuck out to me with her is she comes home. Her daughter is in her bedroom on a phone call with her boyfriend. So she's not in the main area. But Mia is sitting with the little brother at the table, helping him with his homework. He's got his computer, he's got his books, he's doing his stuff. The mom's immediately mad that he's not jumping up to help her with the groceries, which, okay, fine. But then 2 minutes later is going, Riley, get your stuff off the table, as if he's like got his Legos or something. He's doing his homework, Mom.
Yeah, she at all times felt like an alcoholic to me.
Interesting.
Like she was a functional alcoholic. Like she had lived what her daughter is going through, and she was almost kind of wanting to condone it in a way of reminiscing of what she wishes she was doing. I don't know, but that was not a normal parenting cycle. And it very much felt like she wasn't always seeing the world the right way herself either. A lot of rage moments that somewhat came out of nowhere. Yeah, her character just made little sense to me overall.
There was an interesting through line with Mia, for me at least. I'm curious how you saw it. So I feel like we're initially supposed to be very sympathetic to her. She is almost the only loving figure to the young boy, Riley. She goes to pick him up. You see in the car, they're scream singing chandelier. They're having so much fun together. She's helping him with the homework. A little bit later, he's scared and his sister won't let him sleep with her. And so he goes and is with Mia so that he feels safe. Like I said, his mom is yelling at him when he's doing his homework. My God. So you're real sympathetic to her. But then there's a turning point where you see that she's being way too lenient. Everything he wants to do, she's saying yes to. Yeah, he can come to the party. He can hang around these older kids. And then eventually the real kicker, he can hold the hand. He can get possessed whenever everyone else is saying no. And it's really interesting. I wonder if you had noticed that or had any thoughts about it, that we're almost lulled into trusting her. And then we feel that betrayal along with the other characters.
Yeah, it definitely did. The part that we haven't mentioned yet is not only has her mother been dead for 2 years, but it's heavily implied at this point that her mother took her own life through sleeping pills. We'll call it unaliving. But there's at least to me, the way that she was showing grief was to try and go back to some of those mother-daughter moments, and the way that she was able to connect with those moments herself was by almost playing the role of the mother. Ooh. And trying to be that parental figure. Not to say it answers for all of the say yes to everything scenarios, but you could definitely tell it was when she felt most at peace, or at least to me it did. And yeah, I definitely think that plays into her desire to have that relationship back with her mom.
You're also sympathetic to Mia because we see that she's outcast. We don't necessarily know why, but they show up to this party. She's the one who really wanted to go because she wants to try this hand. And having seen the movie now, it seems pretty obvious that what she wanted to do all along was talk to her mom. Why else would she be that desperate to go and get possessed, talk to the dead through this hand? But we're sympathetic. She gets to this party. No one's even looking at her, let alone talking to her. She's trying. There's kind of the awkward teenager thing, but people are very obviously snubbing her. And even the friend she came to the party with is nowhere to be found. So she's very isolated. And so she gravitates to more, and probably, I would think, is more lenient towards the younger boy, because who does she have? Why would she want to risk him not liking her anymore by telling him no or being the responsible one?
Yeah, at first I was a little thrown off by it because we had seen clips of her watching what resembled like TikTok,
Snapchats.
yeah, Snapchats. And you actually thought it was like a viral, like all over the world type thing, or this thing on the internet. Whereas I got the impression of it was her group of friends, that her circle. And initially I was given the impression that she was just wanting to do it out of excitement, or just she wanted to prove she was cool and get into it. And I think this is the fun part where we can start getting into the actual party itself. But they do a party, and the whole point of the entire party that her friend is hosting is specifically to do this hand thing.
It's the possession, yeah.
Yeah, so there is a hint of alcohol there. There's definitely smoking, but it's definitely the hand. So when they pull it out and they first start to talk about what it is, you get a little bit of backstory of, ooh, I heard it came from this, I'm gonna get it wrong,
A psychic or a medium.
yeah, a psychic. And they chopped his arm off, and then they put a plaster around it, and if you were to break it open, you'd find a hand inside of it. Whoa, I heard it came from a black magic witch voodoo doctor. I don't know, some other version. It was clear they didn't have any actual insight into what this thing was. Later on, we end up finding out that they had actually gotten it from a friend of theirs, who, when he asked if he could borrow it, they basically said, you can have it. We eventually connect the dots, and the opening sequence, the two brothers, the one that was stabbed by his brother, and then the brother who ended up unaliving himself, shall we say.
I've already demonetized us.
Yeah,
Already said
exactly.
kill.
So we end up finding out that that's actually who they obtained it from. So they already have a history of knowing that this hand and has been associated to people who have used it and went on a full-blown bender. In fact, they even hinted that the guy went nutso. The two people that are
hinted or intimated, and it's like, no, they say it. They say, I think the words they said was he went schizo.
Yeah.
And started seeing them everywhere, and then it ended up hurting his brother. And
Yeah, so the hosts know
the danger.
there is a possibility that connect one to the other. Maybe something has occurred from this, because the way that it's depicted, and I want to kind of walk through what a session looks like, but the way it's depicted is this looks violent to a degree when it's first taking over or possessing the body. There's physical changes. There are fears of respiratory failure, of people choking out during the process. So it's not like this innocent little thing. If you touch it, you see a ghosty and everybody cheers. It looks a little deranged. It looks a little messed up.
But they do cheer. And actually, that's a funny thing just to kind of mention is, whereas in a lot of movies, I might be like, oh, this is unrealistic. This isn't how people would react. I 100% believe that if this object existed and did the things people say it did, this is exactly how teenagers would react to it. They have their rules. They feel safe. They feel invincible. They take out their phones and they laugh at whoever's getting possessed.
Yeah. So let's do this. Let's walk through. We've talked about a little bit. We've hinted at some of the rules. Let's walk through a session.
I said the rules.
In fact, let's do it to you.
Okay.
Here's the hand.
I'm grasping.
No.
I'm grasping my mic.
Okay, so first things first, they didn't force it on anyone. This was 100% a volunteer thing. So you have about, let's set the room, you have about 10 or so people in the room, all with their phones out, all just getting ready to just have the time of their lives. They'll place a volunteer.
Let's go with Mia's first time. I think we experience it for the first time while she does.
But they sit you down. They then, as a precaution, they take a belt and they wrap it around your waist in the chair and they cinch it tight. Mm-hmm. Now your arms are free, your legs are free. It's just around your waist, but they hint that it's a completely necessary step. And we end up finding out pretty quickly why that might be.
Yeah.
So after that, you mentioned that there's a candle. So the way that they allude to it is alluding again.
The way that they say outright.
Yeah, the way they say it in a hinting sort of way.
In a quiet.
You light the candle and it is opening the door to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
From there, you now have to reach out with your hand and you have to hold this item, which we haven't really described, but it's effectively just if you severed somebody's arm about halfway through the forearm and then you put plaster around it, that's what it looks like. It looks like it's reaching out for a handshake. It's got all kinds of things written all over it. Didn't really read a ton of them. One of them does say, "I let you in."
Or talk to me.
Yeah, talk to me. There's tons of other things that we never get to, but ultimately, you sitting in the chair, you would reach out, you would grasp it, and you would say,
Talk to me.
and right in front of you, a ghostie would appear. Every single ghostie they showed us had some type of massive skin distortion, disease.
They felt like violent deaths. It didn't feel like, oh, that's just a person who, maybe died in their sleep of a nice peaceful. It all looked, violent.
Yeah, all of these were top tier scary.
Yes. And Mia is the only person I thought reacted appropriately. I guess they don't want to do that too much through the movie, but she freaks the hell out. There's a scary man. And that's the other thing. Maybe for the people in this universe, they have heard of this and they know what's supposed to happen, but they don't explain that for the audience's benefit. The way we're explaining it to you, they don't tell us what's going to happen. They just say, touch this and say, talk to me. She turns and jump scare. There's a scary man right there. And that kind of made me giggle just situationally, that no one would like explain what's about to happen to you. It's just, nope, scary man.
Yeah, and she instantly lets go of the porcelain
As
hand.
she should.
And the key component in this is the ghostie that appears is completely random. There's no choosing. You can't summon something. And what we end up learning is when everybody's laughing at her effectively, freaking out, and they're encouraging her, do it again, do it again, do it again, is when she does finally reach back out and she grabs on, she gets a completely different ghostie. And we go back now to the roughly 40 to 50-year-old woman who looked like she had been dropped in the river and was completely bloated from water, very disfigured. And that's when they begin heckling her enough and start telling her, tell it, I let you in.
Say it.
Say it.
Say it.
Now, this is where the 90-second clock kicks in, because apparently this device, this porcelain hand, has come with instructions.
So, I would assume from the people that they got it from.
What happens if you go over 90 seconds?
What we're told is they'll want to stay.
Goodness.
I feel like if I were a spirit and I got a taste of possession, I don't care if it was 2 seconds or 90, I'm probably going to want to stay.
Yeah, and quite frankly, if it came with a warning label of don't go over 90, how close to 90 do you think you're getting?
Maybe we should drop that down to 60. Just,
maybe we'll drop it down to 30. I don't really want to find out that the cooking instructions were different.
Our microwave is more powerful.
What power level do we put this on? So the 90-second clock starts ticking. Mia's holding the hand. She's now on her second ghostie because she let go and she had to re-grab it. She's staring at this bloated mass in front of her, and she invites it. Let me in, or I let you in. Yeah. Instantly, her body shudders. Her head rocks back in the chair. Her eyes completely dilate, like beyond the normal capabilities of an eye to dilate. It goes almost full black on her eyes. And her throat, her face, everything starts to become visibly distorted through some type of, I will equate it to some type of disease as she's being consumed and taken over. But after a fair number of seconds and her almost struggling to breathe, eventually she almost becomes quasi-normal, skin still disfigured.
You can tell that now it's like the possession process is completed. Now she has been taken over. The acting was really cool. The way it was like she was feeling herself. And because you think about it as a dead person in the body now. And so she's feeling her face and she's looking at everybody and really like taking in what's going on. Really good acting. And then she starts zeroing in on people. And it's almost like the spirits understand more. And so she starts saying things to people that feel very targeted, especially to Riley, the little brother.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to get you. He's going to split you. He wants you. And I think the little boy, I think we learn, I keep calling him little boy, but I think he's 14. Understandably freaked out. And all right, what the host says, all right, that's 83 seconds. Let's cut it. There's two people that kind of run this. There's Haley, who seems to be the mouth, and then there's the muscle. I don't remember his name.
Yeah, but he's your prototypical running back on a football team, except we're in Australia, so whatever the equivalent is, but very large, strong-looking lad. Goes over,
Fella.
grabs the porcelain hand and begins to pull it out of her hands and can't.
It ain't coming.
She is holding on with a death grip. He's now using his legs. He's trying to rip this thing out.
Multiple people are reaching, pulling, tugging. It's not working.
Mm-hmm. Finally, they do manage to break it free.
And they blow out the candle.
And, well, Jade, her friend, was the first one to she beeline it to the candle to blow it out, to do everything she could to protect her friend or try to end the craziness that was going on. But the very first thing Haley says,
it says, "Are you okay? You went a few seconds over. We went a few seconds long."
Yeah. So there's our first hint that this, if her not letting go of the hand wasn't already an abnormal thing, there was our first hint that something unintended has occurred.
So that night we see she's sleeping over at her friend's house. Riley, the boy, is
by the way, all these kids apparently can stay over at each other's houses all the time. No big deal. There's always a scenario where it's perfectly acceptable that they're not at home.
In this movie are weird. Except the fact that we see the parents, it reminds me a little bit of It Follows in that the parents just aren't really anything to think about. But Riley is freaked out, of course. He tries to stay in Jade's room. She's like, hell no. So he goes in and he hangs out with Mia. That's where we get a little bit more of the backstory of her mom. That it was very traumatic, the way that they found her after she died, after she had her overdose. And then we see he falls asleep with his phone and his AirPods, and we see Mia reach over. She takes his phone, turns it off, takes his headphones out. She gives him a very, very loving pat on the head. And then we see, as you mentioned earlier, that hand of that bloated woman that possessed her earlier, that hand reaches out and gives him a little stroke as well. So we're seeing, those few seconds really mattered.
All right, trivia time.
Trivia.
So that was your first party where you went to an event like this, and there were ghosties, and you had your own personal experience where you found out that, holy crap, it seems to be real. What's the first thought in your mind? Wrong. It's, when can we have another party? Because that's exactly where we go. She immediately rushes one of the hosts and basically says, when can we do this again? This is the next day at school, obviously.
Yeah, well, I failed to mention, and probably should throw out here, that when Riley is asking her what it was like, that's when we learn, and she says it was euphoric. It was like I was in the passenger seat. Everything was glowing and fuzzy and warm, and it was wonderful. So you learn that, for the people doing this, it's not scary and creepy. It's fun. It's that drug feeling. So that, at least the explanation they're giving us is that's why maybe they would rush to want to do it again.
Yeah. So they make arrangements. They're going to do it a second night in a row. And it's no shock that Mia is now visibly ready to be one of the first people to go. So they get there, they get set back up again, and she's one of the first people to volunteer to go again.
And this is where we see it turns into like a party, where everyone's taking a turn. And actually, she isn't the first one to go. It's the boyfriend. It's her friend's boyfriend, who we learn that Mia playfully says is her ex. We learned that nothing really happened. They held hands years ago.
Yeah, when they were like toddlers.
Right.
Yeah,
But
Daniel, I think.
there's another moment of beyond fear of like, I don't like this. Why would this be fun? Because when he is possessed, he's possessed by a raunchy, like, sex demon.
Yeah, and we learn a little bit that the demons or the ghosties seem to have insights into the person they're possessing. It's almost like they understand their mind, they understand their emotions. So he starts describing things, and you have to assume this could potentially be the reality of the person that they've taken over.
Insinuating that he doesn't really care for his girlfriend, that he's not attracted to her, he doesn't want her, he wants Mia instead. But then he goes completely over the rails and starts making out with a dog.
Yeah, there's a moment where he falls over on the ground, and I will say, what's a kid-friendly way to say
He
that?
makes out with a dog.
Well, no, he starts gyrating on the floor as though he's doing something to something.
No, it's sex demon for sure. So they almost call it quits there. And I'll note that Jade, the friend, she didn't want to go to the first party. She thought all of this was dumb and that people were faking it. And at this point is more than ever going, I don't think we should keep going. My boyfriend's upset. This is a bad thing. We go into a montage. They decide, no, everything's fine. And everyone else at this party starts in a round robin, just taking their turn. The boyfriend eventually comes back. Okay, he can laugh now, just no cameras. And they put the thought dog outside, as Mia calls it. But Jade never does it. She never does it.
No, not once.
And she is insistent that her brother not do it either.
Yeah, because he starts asking if he can have a turn at it as well. And Mia takes it on herself to start trying to negotiate on his behalf. And, oh, what about 60 seconds? What if we don't do it the full amount? Like, let them have a little bit of fun. What about 60 seconds? We'll just do it a little bit.
You don't have to be a bitch about everything, Jade. Like, really interesting how much she vouches for Riley.
Mm-hmm.
A little strange, because you'd think for someone who cares so much about the family that she would also be cautious and protective of him as a little brother.
Yeah, so the older sister Jade, she ends up stepping out of the room. I don't know if she's just getting some fresh air, just frustrated, but she steps out, and while she stepped out,
Riley, sensing weakness, starts pestering as any little brother would. Please, Mia, just 60 seconds. Please, I can do it. Just 60 seconds. Just 60 seconds. And she finally gives in and says 50 seconds. And I will point out that the hosts, the bringer of hands, have no qualms. They're like, oh, cool, you're going to do it? Let's go. They set it up immediately. They do not care. It becomes really clear immediately that it's not just fear whenever Riley says, talk to me. He's confused at whatever he's seeing. And Mia just says, it's okay, just say it. You'll be fine. And he does say, let me in. And then it appears that the ghostie that is possessing him is Mia's mom.
oh,
saying very sweet things. I'm so proud of you. I never wanted to leave you. I would never do that to you. And of course, Mia, being faced with maybe this one-time chance to talk with her mom, has decided 50 seconds be damned. Let me talk to my mom. But I don't know how long after that. Pretty soon after that. Whether it's still mom or not, Riley gets real twisted up and starts banging his head.
Not just banging.
Slamming.
It is the most amount of force you can imagine. If you were to take somebody by the back of the skull and ram their head into a table, he is now doing that to himself. He does it repeatedly, over and over again. They're trying to stop him. And once he can no longer bang his head anymore, what does he do? He reaches up and he then, with his one free hand, begins to try to take his own eyeball out.
It was visceral. It was horrifying. The whole time I'm going, someone put your hand between him and this solid surface so that he can no longer be smacking his head. They try to get the hand away. Of course they can't. Eventually he kind of slides across the room on his chair.
Gets thrown across the room.
And
breaks a window too, I think.
He does. And then tries to now aim his head smacking at an edge like a mantle, it looks like. His sister comes in now, panicked, what's going on? And the only person with enough sense, this is exactly what she does. She sticks her hand at the last moment right on the mantle to protect his head, smashes her hand, but protects her brother. I think that's when they're able to get the hand away from him.
Yeah, they finally get the hand away. They blow out the candle. Actually, we don't know. We don't see them blow out the candle. That ends up becoming a critical plot point later on. But there was one other detail that we forgot to talk about what are the rules of engagement. They have alluded to the idea that if you die while possessed, you will never come back. Obviously, you're not coming back as yourself because you're dead, but the idea is that that's how the demons win. They basically want to control you, connect with you, and then they want to take over and you die. That is their end objective. So we came very close to having Riley unalive himself during this process and almost won, and his sister barely saved the day. But the question of the candle being blown out and the door being closed is now a mystery.
Well, so they immediately call the police. This is another moment where I'm going, okay, they're not crazy or inept. They call the mom, they call the police. Everyone assumes it was drugs involved. No one thinks that he just did this to himself, but he ends up in the hospital. They all have to give their statements to the police. And then we see that, of course, the sister's mad, but the mom is also blaming Mia.
Yeah, she says some pretty cruel things to her.
Very. Insinuating that she knows that she's done drugs before and she knows she's at fault and don't you dare come near him. And we see him in the hospital and he's just a wreck. I thought they did a really good job at showing the aftermath.
Yeah, everything was swollen and distorted. He looked genuinely beat within an inch of his life.
Yes. So she goes home, and at this point, I'm probably not going to remember the exact order of operations, but she starts not only mildly questioning the order of events that took her mom's life, but she starts asking her dad, is there anything that you're not telling me? Is there something you're keeping from me about mom? And he's saying no, but they're still very disconnected. I still don't feel like we've gotten a good look at him yet. He's just kind of this figure, but we don't see him as a person just yet. Then, I've already gotten things mixed up because that's the point where she decides to try to go to the hospital. Now they don't want her there. She's going to go home. So the boyfriend's driving her home. So, to your point of like, there are no parents that care where their kids are. He says some kind of something. I'll also point out here that the Australian accents were very thick. I probably should have turned subtitles on, but there were definitely moments where I was missing some finer details, and this was one of them. I think what he said is basically his parents think he's staying with his cousin, so they're not going to miss him. And so she asks, would you please stay with me? I don't want to be alone. So now we end up with this kind of strange, her best friend's boyfriend is now in her bed.
Yeah, and she basically asks him, like, hey, I don't want to be alone. Will you come with me? And he even alludes to, hey, I think that might be a little weird given the whole girlfriend situation and friend situation. But ultimately, when she begs him to, he does decide to go. And the way they end up orientating as they're going to sleep is they're
dead. Yeah,
they're laying in the same bed, but they're facing opposite directions, feet ahead. And he passes out reasonably easily. She's
having a tough time. She's remembering her mom. She's watching some old videos with her mom. And eventually she kind of snuggles up against his leg And
Yeah, it's a hairy calf shin area.
she's starved. She's starved for that affection and connection. But she manages to drift off and then wakes back up. And what's in the corner?
I think it's the first ghosty that we saw. The one that we only saw for a brief
was a
second.
man.
I know, but that was the whole point, is the face still resembled a man, but then the body was very much like a heavier set woman, and I perceived it as a cross-dresser.
Okay, well, we have differing thoughts. I'd probably have to go back and look at it a little closer. I just thought it was, all right, we've got a ghosty. We've got a ghosty in the corner. And she comes crawling out, and Mia is panicking. She climbs onto the bed, and there ain't no way to say this in a good, nice way. She starts sucking on that boy's toes.
She got at least 2 or 3 of them digits.
She's doing, again, great acting. Like a nightmare scream. Like when you want to, when you're going, oh my God, oh my, and you're trying to get that breath and it won't come out. She's trying to, Daniel, wake up. And I thought it was really, really convincing, but he will not wake up. What happens when he does wake up?
Well, he does finally end up waking up, and he instantly freaks out because his foot's in somebody's mouth. But it's Mia's mouth.
It's Mia.
Mia's sucking some toes.
She's sucking his toes, and her eyes, she's very obviously possessed. Actually, kind of funny.
Yeah.
Because we mentioned earlier that when you're playing the game, the possession comes through as your eyes are getting blacked out, like they've dilated. But right now, her eyes are whited out.
Mm-hmm. And I think all of the ghosties that we see, all the ghosties have white eyes. It's only the possessions that they get black eyes. So to me, that was them conveying that this is full on ghosty in control of her body.
Lines are being blurred.
Mm-hmm.
So he, of course, panics, leaves immediately. Another moment of, yeah, check. That's exactly what would happen. I am leaving. Then I think we go back to the hospital, and Riley, they're trying to give him a bath. They're trying to talk with him, see if he's come back. But what happens?
The mom leaves the room. He's now alone in this bathroom shower configuration where they're soaping him down with a sponge with his sister. And it takes hardly any time at all. And he momentarily begins to come to. And you can tell that there's some excitement about this. And he bites her on her hand,
Her injured hand.
that she's holding on to him with. And as soon as he falls to the floor, he immediately just starts slamming the back of his head into the tile in the wall of the bathroom. And of course, the water's running in the room, so the blood's mixing with the water and going down the shower drain. And of course, the sister's screaming bloody murder. And I'm just gonna say this: that is twice now where that girl did something to that boy and came out with an injured hand, and nobody blamed her for anything.
It's very interesting. Yeah, because whenever he first ends up in the hospital, you pointed out he's had his whole face beaten in, and she has an injured hand. And
A broken hand.
no one is questioning, did you just beat your brother? This one's a little different. It's a bite. But still, yeah, injured hand, injured brother.
Yeah. I have to ask, whenever the police were visiting the scene of the crime the first time around, they were getting depositions from all of the youngsters. Of course, nobody gets detained because why would they? They're kids, and somebody almost just died. But what does that matter? What do you think the story they told was? Do you think they actually said, hey, yo, we got a ghosty hand and we were all playing with demons?
No one is copping to it. And basically they're just saying that he started doing it himself, that he had a breakdown. No, there were no drugs, but the hand ends up being hidden and Mia has possession of it. So it was squirreled away and she was able to keep it safe, but she and no one we see will tell anyone what really happened, which is where I went, what? Why are they doing this? The videos are everywhere online. Why wouldn't they just be like, oh, we did the hand thing? And that's where the discrepancy came in. I kind of saw that as it was a trend. It was viral almost, maybe not worldwide, but localized. Like everyone knew that this was happening. You thought it was more in the friend group. And the only thing I have to say against that is we've been shown very clearly Mia doesn't have a friend group. So she wouldn't be in like group chats and things with these people.
You can still get lumped into like a school athletic group or a school that group.
I'm just saying.
You end up in groups whether you're actually friends with people or not.
True. But I'm just saying if something were that widespread in these groups, you would end up with one of those parent scare emails like it was whenever they said that we were soaking
That's
tampons.
the one thing we've ruled out this whole movie is the parents don't have a brain cell. So there's no PTA.
Okay.
None of that exists.
Okay. All right. Well, it's become clear through this, though, that Riley continues to be possessed. He's not safe. So now it's the end game here of they've got to try to figure out how to save him. And Mia, in her horrible broken state, she hasn't said I let you in by herself, but she has used this hand by herself, said talk to me. And it looks like her mom, something that looks like her mom is talking to her and telling her, you need to save him. You need to help him. She's being guided by her mom, who's also telling her that she did not overdose on purpose, that there's something else going on, that she's not safe. So we've got all of that going on with Mia. They talk to the brother that we saw at the beginning.
Hold on, how does that scene end?
Oh,
Ghosty mom ends up laying down with Mia, very much full arms wrapped around her, just cuddling like you wouldn't believe, like you've just lost your mom for 2 years and you're getting a hug for the first time.
And important to note that her mom doesn't look as horrific as the other spirits that we see. Except for the eyes, she looks pretty normal.
Close to it. So she still has a little disfigurement around the mouth.
Okay, maybe a little bit.
But yeah, very odd to not just use the doll to go to hand, or the doll to go to bed, the hand of the whatever to go to bed, but it's a full-blown like, yeah, ghosty mom that's completely not human. Let me spoon with you and go to sleep. Do you think she slept holding that hand the whole night?
They didn't show the hand, and that's where you could argue either way. I agree with you that I think it was her being held by the spirit, but it could have also been a memory, and it's just her kind of holding on to that memory of her mom. But it's important to note that Mia does not have to use that hand to see things.
She started to cross over into like more spoopy territory.
She saw her mom in the hospital kind of leading her around to different places.
Reflections are becoming a big thing. She sees her in mirrors. She sees her in glass.
So she really wouldn't have to use the hand, I don't think, to have that sleepy snug.
Maybe
with her mom.
Still, who in their right mind would use the hand without a helper nearby, given everything that you've seen?
Oh, definitely not. But they never really showed us until that point that you could talk to a spirit without saying, I let you in. So maybe if we had known that, we wouldn't have panicked so much. So now they meet with the brother of the kid that had this happen to him and who passed away. He doesn't really want to help them. But what we learned from him is that if you just leave the hand alone, eventually you'll get better. The spirits will leave.
They get weaker.
They get weaker over time. And he's really upset that no one would do that for his brother. They egged him on. They wouldn't let it rest. They weren't really his friend. They were using him, and ultimately ended up in his death. But we learned that they will go away in time, and Mia kind of empathizes with him and says, I know what it's like to lose someone who's that close to you. And she ultimately gets the idea of, I don't know if we blew that candle out. So maybe we try to open the door again with Riley and then make sure we blow the candle out. Maybe that'll shut the door.
Yeah. Along this time period as well, the mother, the ghosty mom, begins to tell her that she needs to save Riley. He's in danger. They want him. Mm-hmm. They won't stop.
So kind of contradicting the line that it'll go away if you just leave him alone.
Yeah, so it almost becomes her solemn duty to now try to fix Riley's condition. So yeah, she begins to rally the troops, basically says, hey, in his comatose state, let's summon another demon and let's make sure that we disconnect it and blow it out. Which my first thoughts were, if I was a demon and I want to take over somebody, it would be reasonable that a much weaker individual that's in a coma would be a prime target to take over.
Insidious.
Yeah, exactly where I was going with that. But yeah, no, they decide we're going to roll with this. Of course, everybody's very much reluctant. They say, hey, we're not on board with it. So Mia comes up with a clever idea.
Well, so they go to the hospital, they light the candle, and I'm immediately going, he can't talk. How's he gonna open the door? But they try with Mia saying, talk to him. And then they blow the candle out and it's not working. He's not coming to, they're not feeling anything. So she takes the hand and says, I think I can maybe talk to Riley. Maybe his spirit is disconnected from his body and I can talk to him.
Yeah, because at this point they've deduced maybe these are ghosties who were caught in limbo. So he might be caught in limbo, especially if an entity has taken over him. He might be outside of his body and able to get back into his body. So let's try to find him in limbo.
So she takes the hand. The other people aren't super jazzed about it, but she says, talk to me. And a little girl appears and she's
like 5 years old or so, something like that.
Little girl. And she's asking, have you seen this boy? I'm looking for this boy. Can you please help me? And the little girl says, I can show you where he is. She says, okay. And then probably the best moment of the movie, because that little girl says, I let you in.
Sure.
And though it's similar reaction, where Mia's head goes back and it feels kind of like that possession, she's really going wherever this little girl is. And you see Riley in a state of torment, just all of these souls ripping at him, wanting him. And he is just screaming, crying. It's a really horrible scene.
Yeah, looks like the pits of hell.
Yeah. And Mia's horrified. She comes to, they blew the candle out. She's as okay as she can be now that we've seen what's up with her. But, she's saying that it's awful. She's seen where he is. It's horrible. It's hopeless, pretty much. And you can tell that she's now just in a state of despair. I think at this point is when she goes back home and we get the final talk with her dad.
Yeah, this is when we go into full Psyche has broken down. So various people have already kind of shunned her a little bit. Then they kind of brought her back into the cycle because I think they started to believe a little bit more of what she was saying, because she is the only one that's exhibiting any of these symptoms. Nobody else has any of these symptoms. They helped her track down the brother of the previous guy that had gone schizo, but
their words, not ours.
Yeah, they're starting to believe more and more that she's not making this stuff up. Of course, they saw what happened to Riley, but there was still some doubt in there. So now the mental barrier is torn, it's shattered. She goes home and she's met by her father, who, paraphrasing, basically says, you know what? I have been keeping something from you. When your mother passed, she left both of us something, and I've kept it from you. And effectively, he pulls out the letter, the unaliving letter. So he begins to read it to her, and of course, it's filled with very sweet words. It talks about, today is a beautiful sunny day, and I'm having a good day, and I effectively want you to remember me as not being in pain. More or less, the letter ends. Mia is not taking this as oh, what a relief, or, oh, that's closure on the chapter, because Mia's through the movie, alluded, not so subtly, that her mother didn't unalive herself.
So what's interesting, I'll point out, because I've been dragging it through this whole time. This is the first time that I remember fully seeing the father. So now he is fully realized. You see his face, you see a close up of it, and he reads the letter. Mia's upset. She's saying, no, no, that's not real. But he gets up and he hugs her. He holds her. And I feel like there's a moment where she does believe it. She's giving in. She's getting that connection. And then she sees her mom.
Ghosty mama.
Who's saying it's not true, don't believe him. And you see her get very confused. It's not a moment of immediately rejecting her father. It's just total confusion. So she goes off. She's like, I just need a minute, Dad. And she goes to her room. And she starts talking to her mom in the mirror. And at this point is when I really noticed and then went, ooh, I didn't notice throughout, but very cool. Every time we've seen the mom, she's gotten more and more and more violent or not violent. She looks
more dead.
There you go. She looks more dead. She's decaying. She looks wet. It's weird. And now it's like at the pinnacle. She looks real close to all those other ghosties that we've seen. And she's saying, that's not your dad. You're in danger. You have to believe me. And Mia is worried and panicking. And you start hearing what sounds like her dad beating on the door. But then the shot goes to her dad, who's just casually looking through her backpack. He's still on the couch. He's not at the door. He's hanging out. She gets into this state where the ghost dad breaks in and is attacking her.
Yeah, and he is covered with some type of skin disease. It looks like measles, like in its worst possible condition, all over his skin. He's very much a ghosty dad at this point. He's
scary, and he attacks her. He's choking her. She's on the ground, and she's reaching for these scissors that are just out of reach, and it cuts. And again, there's her dad. He's just hanging out. He's on the couch. He finds the hand, and he's confused. He's going, what is all of this? And then he hears her yelling for him. She needs help. So now real dad's running in, and everybody who's ever seen a movie knows exactly what's about to happen, which is that she finally gets a hold of those scissors and swings them towards ghost dad, but she hits her dad.
Yeah, and the thread through this is in her denial that her mother unalived herself. She's slowly started to come to her own conclusion because of ghosty mom planting these seeds of, if mom didn't unalive herself, then someone unalived her. So she's been playing with this mentality for the past 20 minutes or so that her father may have unalived her mom. And now we're in a scenario where he's actively attacking her. She recognizes for a split second that because of the skin condition that this is not her father. And now she's begging her real dad for help. And he comes running in there. Actually, and it's that transition whenever it all unfolds.
Very reminiscent of the opening of the movie as well, where she has barricaded herself. She is seeing ghosties and demons, and someone that she loves is coming to save her. And then she attacks. She stabs. Both at the beginning and at this point, it's a stabbing. So it makes you see the beginning differently. What was that boy seeing that had him so scared that he thought he needed to hurt his brother? But we see that with this act, it doesn't snap her out of her psychosis.
Oh no, she is like fully locked in. She's the Terminator now. She's ready to go. She has a mission.
I don't even know if she recognizes what she's done, but she puts those scissors in her pocket. She lures her friend.
Calls her, says, hey, come to my house.
Lures her away from the hospital so that she can go and release Riley from his torment. We get a moment, again, it's like all of these moments where she might break out. Then we get a moment with Sue, with her friend's mom, who's apologizing, who's saying, I never should have said those things to you. There were no drugs in his system. You didn't hurt him. And of course you can see him. Of course you can be alone with him. And you wonder is she gonna snap out of it and understand what she's doing? But she doesn't. And she goes to stab him, thinking about it with those scissors. She hesitates. It's going to be so hard to do. And at this point, I feel I was trying to cut things down, but I feel like I really messed up not mentioning at the beginning of the movie that she and Riley come across an injured kangaroo on the road, and he's begging her to put it out of its misery. And she almost hits it with her car, and then she can't do it, and she just leaves. And now this is what's coming to her mind as she goes to put him out of his misery, is this kangaroo. Ends up, okay, now the sister's coming back. She's calling the mom saying, okay, Mia's dangerous. Mia spirits him away. She puts him in a wheelchair. Where does she get the wheelchair? But
I mean, she's in a hospital.
Well, I know, but if you put me in a hospital and said, here, quick, 2 minutes, get them into a wheelchair and get them out. Where
I mean, he's comatose. They have to wheelchair him around to get him to different places, and he's a tiny little 14-year-old boy. She could throw him around.
Well, at this point as well, she is hallucinating. She's not seeing Riley. She is seeing an old man.
Oh, yeah.
Who's taunting her. We've got
demon.
him. You're never going to get him back. So, she can't even be clear-headed because this is what she's seeing. Ultimately, she gets him out of the hospital. She has decided she is going to do what he wanted done to the kangaroo. She's just going to throw him in front of a car. And it's very tense moment. But what ends up happening is Jade manages to knock her into traffic, saves her brother. And from then on, you get Mia kind of walking around. Now you can see road rash on her face, and she's real banged up. Her fingers are bent in the wrong direction. And now she's walking around the hospital, but no one seems to be able to hear her.
And it's almost like time's passing at an unreasonable rate. And we're seeing people that she's familiar with walking and doing one thing and then the next. And they're only moving a couple of feet, but in one moment, it's almost like it's been a couple of weeks or a couple of days. And then in the next moment, it's a couple of weeks. And in the next moment, it's like the whole place is shutting down around her. Like all the lights are turning out. She's chasing her father into the elevator as the elevator doors close.
Well, and very important to note that her friend found her dad when she was sent on the fool's errand to the house. And he's not dead despite being stabbed in the neck. So yeah, you're seeing him and it's like, oh, he's recovered at the hospital. And then you see, like you said, maybe people have only moved a couple of feet, but Riley has gone from his beaten, bloodied, puffy face to he looks normal. He's talking, he's laughing. You're seeing everyone around her heal. And yes, hallways are blocked to her. Lights are turning out. And you realize she's gone. She's not alive anymore. And though she calls and calls for her dad not to leave her, he's gone. And she's in total darkness. Until
she sees
a
glow.
Candle. A little light, a little firelight off in the distance. And she goes towards it. And she sees a hand reaching out to her. And she grasps it. And she is on the other side of a talk to me. Funny enough, it's in like another country.
Yeah, it's like Latin America or something.
They're speaking a completely different language. They do say, I let you in English because they're very nice like that. But you realize she is not only fully gone, but she is in whatever limbo.
Dun, dun, dun.
I have to say, I've said this a couple of times to you, and I still don't know how to articulate it perfectly, but I feel just so sorry for Mia. You see the mistakes that she makes, and I'm not trying to take away any of that or to say that she was perfect, but I like in my horror content to kind of see a thread of maybe consequence is the right word, and I don't know if I think she deserves everything that happened to her. It felt more like, and well, maybe this is the point, it felt more like that inescapable pressure and consequence of grief. And especially, like I just said a minute ago, at the very end, watching everyone around her heal. And she just can't. She just can't. And it's sad. It's not one of those comeuppance type things. It's very upsetting.
Yeah, I still have to appreciate that all throughout the movie, the only thing that you really have to look sideways at, it was just the overall quality of the parenting.
Yeah.
But overall, the movie and its characters behaved in a very believable 1-step, 2-step, 3-step kind of way. All of the stupidity that allows this to unfold is very realistic. That's how fools behave.
Yeah.
The idea that this hand is going to travel the globe, that's
a little silly.
a little silly, but I like to pretend in my little 8-ounce, 7-pound Jesus that there's a left hand and there's a right hand.
Yeah, I did think that. I did think that maybe that was the other hand. They actually they say that at the beginning, that in their, like, when they're talking through the possibilities, one of the possibilities was there's another hand out there. So maybe that is what it is. But I agree with you that even the moments where it is a stupidity moment for one of the characters, it's believable. It's believable that someone who feels so abandoned and hurt and has seen the consequences of their actions, but also just got a taste of talking to their mother who they miss so much, would risk touching that hand again, even by themselves, for just the chance that they'd see their mom.
Yeah, but I'm about to crap on 2 points of order for this film.
Let's go through what you didn't like.
The brother from the intro, the one that they end up consulting about halfway through the movie, and he alerts them to, hey, just leave them alone and it'll get weaker and everything will go back to normal. That there's a couple of points with him that just drive me up a wall. Number one, he has blamed this item for causing his brother to go schizo, using their words, and lead to his death. And what does he do? Does he seclude it away? Or when he gets asked, hey, do you mind if I borrow it? He's like, yeah, sure, no problem. You can have it. And then later passes judgment on them.
He's not
for
the one who
using
did
it.
that. It was remember, it was the boy who killed himself that gave it to them, because he said, you can have it. I don't need it to see them anymore. The accent gotcha. You missed it.
Maybe. But
no, I get your point of, like, wouldn't you be the one telling everybody about that if you felt like it attributed to your brother's death?
The other angle is they have used this hand enough for him to have the knowledge that just doing nothing will heal this. So obviously it didn't heal his brother. His brother went fully in one direction and he's not with us anymore. So that immediately makes me assume someone else had to have gone to a pretty far extent and have come back from that over time for him to have built this hypothesis. Because when he says it, it doesn't come across as a theory. It comes across as a, yeah, take 2 aspirin and go to bed.
In fact, he seems a little exasperated. He's just like, another one. Okay, just leave it alone. Don't use the hand and it'll go away. Like, it's like he's given this advice before.
Yeah, so if you know enough about this stuff to know it can get out of hand and just give it some time, it'll go away. And
Out of hand.
then at that point, it's like, okay, well, maybe we've learned enough. Stop using the daggum thing. But nope, that's not how the world works.
That's not. Overall, I mean, that my only critique is probably an intentional piece. It's a feature, not a flaw, which is, like I said, it makes me sad. And I feel like she didn't do anything. In fact, I feel sorry for her throughout the movie. She's being isolated at this party. Her dad isn't doing enough to reach out to her. Then her found family, her friend at one point, Jade, says horrible things, says, I wish you didn't insert yourself into my family. And it's just, I wanted her to have somebody, anybody so badly. And instead she just gets consumed in her isolation by this creature. And again, as I'm saying it, it's a feature, not a flaw, but it's one of those, oh, it just hurts me. And I like and don't like being hurt. were there any moments of funny filmmaking mistakes or anything that stuck out to you?
Can't really say that there was there, but man, what a joy and what a highlight to have that encounter and the experience with the little girl.
Loved it.
That was its own film. Just the 45 seconds of that interaction, I was so entranced by it. They had my full attention. I didn't expect it. I didn't see anything like that before. Maybe I should have seen it coming, but I didn't care. I am so creeped out by little girls, little kids in films like this. And for them, that to become an ally and then to drag her to the pits of hell and to open herself up so abruptly. It wasn't a transition. It was, I let you in. Boom. It happened. And I was just so in love.
You know, if I were a ghost, I'd be doing that to everybody who, like, I showed up and they're holding the hand before they'd get the chance. I'd just go, I let you in.
Yeah, the only thing that really stuck out to me was just how comfortable everybody was with the kids smoking and hanging out in public and no big deal and it just being a running joke. But yeah, not too much stood out to me other than that.
Funny to me, I'm very intentional, obviously. So in the horrible moment of the boyfriend being possessed and making out with a dog, when he is broken of the possession and they're helping him up, the
all the little
costumers,
hair,
they put little dog hair
fur
all over his face. It was so gross. I loved it. And I will just say, as far as like moments in the movie that stood out to me, obviously the beginning, like I said, we watched the whole opening sequence and then went, oh my gosh, we did not realize what we were getting into and that it was going to be so good. But then the other moment when she and the boyfriend are asleep and then, okay, there's that other woman in the corner. I had that moment, and we've talked about this before. Anytime we're eating while watching a horror movie, I wasn't eating, but I was very intentionally keeping my teeth together
so
and
you
my
didn't bite your
tongue out of the way because I was so afraid of getting scared and hurting myself. It was really good, the tension of that moment.
Yeah, this movie didn't really lean too much into the scary department. I can't even off the top of my head recall any jump scares.
Very minor. I would say the first ghost would be considered a jump scare because, like I said, they didn't tell you what the hand was going to do.
Yeah, but they didn't back it up with any like exceptional sound, which audio is usually such a big part of like making it, selling it. It was just, hey, here's me face. But yeah, I was with you though in the opening of the movie. The level of I cannot understand this accent was really becoming a problem to the point that I kind of stopped listening a little bit at the beginning of the film. Thankfully, they got more normalized as
we
the
got
show
used
went on.
to it.
Yeah,
We should have turned the subtitles on, man.
Yeah,
we should have just done it.
But yeah, the first part of the movie, I was kind of giggling at the prospect of I get that they're speaking English, but I ain't got a clue what they're saying.
Should we go into ratings?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's have some fun. Let's turn it into a little bit of a lightning round, though.
Oh no!
So,
I talk too much.
How would you rate this on the scare factor?
Scary.
On a scale of 5 scary movie Sundays out of 5.
1 to 5 scary movie Sundays. I'm only gonna give this a 2 for scaries.
I'll say it's a 1. It didn't offer anything scary. It was more of a story and unfolding.
There were definitely still some moments where I was like tense, though.
How about gore?
Ooh, the gore in this movie is gore. I'm gonna give it a 4.
Wow. I'm gonna give it a 2 just because of how little of it there was, but what was there was exceptionally well done.
No, the fingers in the eyeball, the kid lapping up his own blood like he was dying of thirst. Oh, it was awful. Horrible.
Quit politicking.
No.
My score is my score.
That's fine. I just have to explain for our audience at home.
How unique was it?
This was so unique. I think I have to give it a 5.
5? I'll give it a 4 because the concept originally was pretty lackluster and weak, but man, they really roped me into it, and I was sold on it.
No, I love maybe the idea of like object summons demon. That is not unique, but the idea of there's a way to make it innocuous enough that the kids are just doing it for fun. That is so unique to me.
About playing by the rules.
I'm gonna give it a 4.
I'm gonna give it a 5.
I do think it played by the rules. The reason I'm giving it a 4 is I felt like a few times they were telling us the rules after the fact. And I didn't, I don't like that.
But they were consistent.
It's why it's a 4. Don't politic me in my scores.
Story.
4.
I'm gonna agree with you. 4.
Yeah.
Acting.
5.
I'm gonna give it a 4.
I felt
Not
like
because anybody did anything poorly, but I want to leave room for better. Directing.
Gosh. 5.
I'm gonna give it a 4. The effects.
5.
I'm gonna agree with you. 5. And your overall Scary Movie Sunday.
Overall is a 4.
I'm gonna give it a 4.5.
Who are you doing the points? I loved this. I would recommend this movie to anybody. The only reason I'm gonna knock it down to a 4 is I do want my scary movies to scare me, and this didn't.
But on the flip side, this is a great movie to recommend to somebody that isn't super into scary movies because they don't like being scared. So if you want to give them a scary movie to watch that doesn't full-blown taunt them the whole way through, because unlike a lot of scary movies, they don't spend a lot of times building tension with audio or specific camera angles. They're more or less straightforward with it, and even when things do happen, they kind of just happen. There's very little in the way of we're going to scare you out of your mind. So this would be a really good option to maybe, I don't want to recommend children watch this, but a younger audience might be able to.
Weenies. That's what we're saying. If you're a weenie,
Yeah.
you'll probably like this. But if you're already here at this point in the video, you weenie, you spoiled it all. Why didn't you leave at the beginning?
It's for you to recommend.
It's because we didn't say spoiler alert.
Everything's a spoiler. No.
All right. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I have to say, overall, I thought this was such a silly idea for a movie, and whenever it passed across me, I had very little interest in it. My goodness, that intro just got me because of how just real it was, other than the horrible parenting. But everything was just so visceral, and it followed my expectations of how things would unfold, and it completely locked me in, and I'm glad that I allowed it an opportunity for me to let it in.
Stop. Well, I'm very glad that we happened upon this on Netflix. I don't know if we would have found it any other way. We're really grateful that y'all are here with us going through our Scary Movie Sunday. If you enjoyed the video, please give us a like. We're just here having fun. We'll get better. This is only our 2nd episode. So come and grow with us and give us your feedback. Tell us what you thought of this movie.
If you want to talk to us, click the like. But if you want to let us in, click subscribe.
It's terrible.
It's awful.
Well, thanks everybody, and catch you next time.